Hello. I am wearing the same cap that I always wear, but stuff still happened. So what's up? Hey, last episode was kind of a heavy one. I'm gonna turn the dial down a bit. I'm also tired, and there was a lot of stuff going on this week, like personal stuff. Less stories today. I apologize. The 4th takes its toll. I just kicked a dog toy. We are not in a recession. I am not a financial boy, but one of my favorite financial boys, Kyla Scanlon, says this all the time. That's because she's a lot smarter than I am and knows it to be true. The situation in the economy right now for the average person is pretty bad. And so we're all kind of like, oh, things aren't good. It feels like a recession. And then a lot of people who want to make a lot of money off of a recession are saying, yeah, it's a recession. And so to quote Kyla, it's sort of a vibe session. The vibes are just not doing great. And if there's enough bad vibes, then, bad times will follow. But we're about halfway through the year, and by virtually every metric that financial people care about, it's not a recession. The S&P is up, unemployment is down, the consumer price index is fine. I'm not sitting here and telling you that your financial problems are not existent. Those are real. It's just they're part of capitalism. Working as intended. And so yeah, things are a lot more complicated than just it feels bad and so recession is happening. And it doesn't really matter at the end of the day if a recession is or isn't happening, because we don't really have control over that. Also, money is fake. But enough about money. Let's talk about porn. If you live in Mississippi, Virginia, or Utah, your state has passed legislation that requires porn sites to verify who you are and that you are at least 18. This is because the state wants to know what you're into. They claim it's to stop the children from seeing the sex. What a concept. Can you imagine? Can you imagine with me, if you will, dear viewer, a world in which a teenager has seen a naked? The horror is immeasurable. It's never happened in the history of video games. I'm joking. Yeah, hey, the porn industry doesn't depict the world's most healthy depiction of sex ever, but what if instead we just talked to kids about sexual health? And we're clear about it. At the end of the day, stop using that as your excuse. You just want to ban porn. At least have the strength to say it. You're trying to make policy based on your religion that says the human body is icky and we shouldn't have it. And you're hiding behind kids, again, as your political pawn. And so with this positioning, anyone who says, hey, I don't think I want the state knowing what porn I'm watching, doesn't care about the children. To combat this, Pornhub is just not serving content to those states anymore. Pornhub is no saint. They're not great, but this is what happens. Anyway, use a VPN. Speaking of tech companies, Pornhub is a tech company. Meta versus Twitter is happening. Apologies in advance. I'm gonna go way too deep into this. So Twitter is melting down from the inside, right? It's more like Elon just kind of taking a big old dookie on Twitter. And that's fine. Good. Bye, Twitter. That's fine. But now Meta is planning to launch, tomorrow, a new app called Threads. That is sort of a branch off of Instagram that is just a clone of Twitter. It's a great idea, right? You're gonna be able to keep your Instagram handle, you can import your Instagram connections, and they're just trying to fill that void that Twitter has left. And honestly, if anyone's gonna do it, it's gonna be Meta. They have the resources. Now, I don't think this is a good idea because I'm a dork. Now, the interesting thing about Threads is that it's apparently going to have support for ActivityPub, which is the technology that powers Mastodon, which is an open source federated Twitter alternative. On the face of it, that's kind of cool because Meta, this giant company that makes walled garden social networks, is saying we're gonna have interoperability with Mastodon and any other social platform that uses ActivityPub. What that means is I, a person who has an account on Mastodon on a server that I run, could theoretically be followed or interact with anyone on Threads. Now, there's a lot of discussion among administrators of Mastodon servers as to whether or not it's okay to do that. Meta's not a good company and has a long history of destroying open source projects. Really, most tech companies have a long history of destroying open source protocols. There's a Wikipedia article about the strategy. It's called Embrace, Extend, Extinguish. Step 1, be a giant tech company who wants to corner a market. Step 2, pick up one sort of open protocol and deliver on that. Step 3, make your version of that protocol a little better. Step 4, cut off everybody else. I say a little better, I really just mean bells and whistles. Google is super infamous for this. Think Google Reader. They didn't want you to have your own control over stuff anymore, and they had Google News as a product, and they were like, well, let's just get rid of Reader. One more thing about Threads versus Mastodon, though. If you take a look at the listing on the iOS App Store for Threads, their app privacy is not very good. They collect literally everything. Compare that to what the Mastodon app collects, which is literally nothing. So in true Meta fashion, if you want to post text on their post text website, they need to collect your health and fitness data. On this day in 1994, Jeff Bezos founded Amazon. Who would have thought that not 20 years later, Amazon would become the world's foremost producer of piss bottles thrown out the window by overworked delivery drivers? Lightning round. We're not 100% certain, but yesterday might have been the hottest day in recorded human history. Speaking of which, here's the weather. You can now kind of see some tweets if you go to Twitter directly, but not all of them, and it's still kind of broken. There's also no timeline on the removal of the limitation on how many tweets you can read as a user. And finally for today, they found cocaine at the White House, and they're investigating it. I would be more surprised if there wasn't cocaine in the White House. Have you met politicians? Thank you so much for watching today's episode of Stuff Keeps Happening. Head to stuffkeepshappening.online for sources, bonus content, and sources. My name is Endeavorance. I'll be back on Friday with hopefully more stories and more energy. Take care and be well.